Sveta Smirnova in Alana, Turkey. Thank you. Great presentation, and thanks for joining.
Thank you.
So you gave a good overview of new features in the latest versions of MariaDB, and I'm trying to group them into some kind of categories, and also what I would like from you is to get an answer about the question why do you think they were introduced, and you can give a propeller head type of answer sort of with the use cases, and you can also compare it to, well, it might have been introduced in comparison to other databases who already have that feature. So the two first ones I'm thinking about is the storage engines, S3 and column store. What's your answer to the why question on those?
This question is like MariaDB, it's always try, well, at least what I can see, because I do not work for MariaDB, but what I can see as a user and as a person who supports other users, it tries to satisfy different user needs. It may be kind of like in case of advanced SQL, it can be up in time with modern SQL standard and make people to use ability to write powerful analytical queries, or it may be it's like case of like in a column store. It's in this case then we have in time when now we have many data in stored in SQL databases, relational databases. But for analytical queries and for particular for business analytics, people prefer to use column store because they could be better optimized. And such, and before MariaDB column store, people watch happening, and they use different other databases. They copied data from a relational database from like MariaDB and copied this data. And practically had 2 copies of data, and they had to use like probably ETL software. So they to get data, they had to speak to SQL and to insert data into analytical database. They had to use a different language, and it was not easy to support these 2 copies. And column store can speak SQL. It's much easier for people who has source data, source data in SQL, and they still can use their web applications, which we use it to SQL for. S3, it's unlike, it's kind of unique feature, but at the same time, this it's maybe it goes to history of MySQL, and MySQL, not modern MySQL, but MySQL like 15 years ago, maybe even older. Then people actually, that's often like sometimes you have a web application which has a shop, and then you sell items. You have to store this sales data in order to show it. That's, for example, for taxation or for statistics and how well your enterprise, your shop behaves. Or maybe you are using like kind of something which users create text, like blog software, social network, etc. Again, what's actual data is often is a small amount of data was recently. It's often inserted recently, like last month or maybe last week. But you still need data which was created earlier, and but you don't need like fast storage. You don't need to buy a better disk to access this data. You don't need to use this often. You don't need to cache it in memory. And before that, it's sometimes you don't need to update it, and so it's okay to be stored on read-only storage. And it's early days of MySQL. There was archive storage engine, which is which is used for this purpose. In version 5.1, MySQL has partitioning, and people often created like used only one partition with latest data, and other partitions were created for keeping just archives. But problem with archive and storage and with partitioning is that you still store this data in the same data directory, or if you like, well, it's sometimes possible to put into different directories. Again, it's like kind of local storage, and you have to care about this. With cloud storage, you may with S3 you can store your data in cloud storage. Actually, you have alternative. You may use it either on cloud or you can use it locally, but you can buy much cheaper storage for this read-only data, and you can afford store of these terabytes, and sometimes even maybe nowadays is petabytes of data.
So one of the reasons there that you mentioned is related to, hey, we have this need and we've been using it in another database, so we need to do it with for migration purposes. So is that a fair situation or fair way to group these things? And you have a very short time to answer here, that some of them are like sequences for migrating applications from other places, and others have grown naturally from a need of existing MariaDB users. And you have a very short time to reply, mind you.
Yes, I think that's true, but I also think that features which are like kind of migration, like people which use different databases, that's also because people need them. That's why they use those different databases with those features.
Yep, very good concluding words. So some features are really created just because they're needed, not which makes the most sense of it all, not just to ease migration from other databases. So thank you, Sveta Smirnova. We'll listen to another presentation by you right now. So see you very soon.
Thank you.